Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation because some of you have seen the title and think that you might have some ideas about what it's about. You may or may not be accurate in some places, and you might discover some things about uh, a whole new way of looking at this whole word called thank you, right? Because how many of us like to hear thank you? And what does it do to us? Well, just think about it. It's really so you hear the word tip, right? Like tenure to ensure promptness is what TIP stands for. TIP is an acronym. Tenure to ensure promptness. I believe that's what it stands for. And when we do good things for other people, right? Like actually, the way the tip came around was that you were actually supposed to tip them before they did their service. Now, think about that. If you tip them before they started rendering you service, do you think their attitude would change a whole lot more about, wow, this is an amazing person? Because, friends, understand the Heidenberg uncertainty principle is real. And what that principle says is basically how you see somebody is what you're going to project onto that person. And that person could literally change upon how you see that person. So let me give you a case in point. So let's say I'm walking down the street. Of course, this might rub some people, but it's all good. It's all met with great intention. Say you're walking down the street and you got this guy walking down, coming towards you, that's big burly guy, bearded, nothing against guys with beards, except I can't really grow one. And he just has this look on his face and he's all tatted up and just leather on and just looks like he's, a guy that you don't want to mess with. And so what you do is you go inside of your head and you come up with this image of who you think this person is, because how much of your life do you spend trying to figure out how not to get hurt? How much of your life do you spend figuring things out or making assumptions or making judgments so that you don't get hurt, to protect yourself, right? And so you come up with this narrative of who you think this person is, and guess what? Your vibration is projected towards that person to validate the assumption or judgment that you had in your head. Anytime we characterize somebody, we have to hold them in that container. How many of us have not been truthful to somebody because we're afraid it's going to hurt their feelings? How many of us have done that, right? Like, of course, I've done it many, many times, right? But the difference is I can be honest about it because I understand that where I was at that time when, whatever, I didn't share the truth completely, right, was to know that I didn't want to hurt that person's feelings. But when I did that, what I was literally doing was holding that person in a smaller place, right? So what if you started looking at every single component of your life, like every single component of your life, as an opportunity for you to grow, as an opportunity for you to expand, as an opportunity for you to see things in a different way than how you already see them? Because most of the way you see things now is automatic, right? By the age of 95, by the age of 35, 95% of our life is automatic. Right? We have this nervous system, this automatic nervous system that we have inside of us, and it perceives things in an automatic way unless we start getting conscious about changing how we perceive things, like learning how to change the narrative. Like I'm about to teach my Mastering Potential inner circle class. Like, oh my gosh, I'm super excited about that. There's been amazing things happening there. And so I've got a lot of things that I've been studying for the last couple of days, getting ready for that. And there's been lots of things that I have looked at over the course of my life and reflecting back on it and just going, man, when I was in the middle of that lesson, it was not fun at all. In fact, it was quite painful. And if I had an opportunity to wave a wand, I'd have gotten out of there like immediately. And you know what would have happened? I would have denied myself one of the greatest opportunities of growth, right? Because in order for us to grow, we have to look at some of the things that we don't want to look at, right? And sometimes that can be painful. Sometimes it can be very uncomfortable, right? But the more we become familiar and stepping into the uncomfortable, we literally alchemize what is going on inside of us, so that we change the attitude about what it is that we're stepping into, right? So think about this. So I had a mentor, and I was all, I used to have this app. I still have the app that you can, it's prompter, teleprompter that will literally give you the teleprompting, and you can do a video. So it's like you're looking into the camera, like high dollar teleprompters do, right? And I was reading the quote by Marianne Williamson. Well, I had a mentor that watched me and seen me do that. And he's like, dude, you got to memorize what it is that you're quoting. I was like, man, this is a big old quote. And it's a pretty good sized quote. It's not, I don't even think it is. It's not that we are, I don't remember what it is, but it's the one of, it's not that we are small that scares us. It's a fullest potential that scares us. Boy, I don't remember the whole quote. I actually have it. I read it a lot, but I still don't have it memorized. Anyway, I really took what he said, right? And then I went on and found another quote that I was just loved, right? And the quote goes something like this: you can take everything away from a man. You can take everything away from a man, but one thing: the last of human freedoms, the right to choose one's own way in any given set of circumstances, the right to choose one's own attitude. Okay. Now, that was written by Viktor Frankl, but to understand the context of this, he wrote that when he was in the Holocaust. Okay, now think about that. The last of human freedoms, the right to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, the right to choose one's own way, right? I got it reversed the first time I said it, but I still get to work. I get to practice with you guys. But understanding that he said that in the middle of the Holocaust, like he found purpose in his, some people would look at that and say tragedy. I know I would, right? Like that was pretty horrific going through the Holocaust. Like I couldn't imagine going through the Holocaust. But see, there's a caveat to this. He was a psychologist, right? So he had lots of training of how to manage his inner world prior to being put into that situation. So now I can say, thank you, Victor. I can say, thank you, Victor, that you were true to who you are, were true to you going through experiences and doing all that you could to take those experiences and use it as a learning tool and a teaching tool to empower other people, so that when they're in situations that they don't want to be in, that they're able to access some things within themselves that allows them to have the fortitude to move through the uncomfortableness or through the pain or whatever it is, right? So I can say thank you for that. And one of the things that I love saying to people is, the people that are, well, it doesn't matter what they've done with it, but somebody that's really stayed true to them, transforming the things that have, that most people look at and go, man, that must have been challenging moving through that. Like, I love saying thank you to those people, because being committed to transforming your story, to alchemizing your story, is a massive, massive undertaking. It's a massive undertaking, right? I mean, and you can find out more about mine by getting my book, right? In fact, I would encourage you to get it, because the price of that is going to go up probably 4 times what it is right now on Amazon, because I got some other things that I'm working on. But understanding that the greatest asset you have in your life, the greatest asset you have in your life is your story, right? And there's lots, I mean, think about all of the people that have contributed to your story. Or like, think about that. How many people you have interacted with over your life. Out of every single one of those interactions, you have created a narrative about that experience, right? And guess what? You get to be the person that can change the narrative of that experience if it is not aligned with what it is that you want to create in this world, right? So when you're out to the restaurant, make sure you say thank you to that person, because that person is exchanging a moment of their life with you. And they're wanting to make your life better. Even if it doesn't turn out the way that you hoped that it would turn out, they're human and they show up in a way like they just have life happen to them, and they don't show up in a way like you expected them to, that you can say thank you and I appreciate you, right? Like so I used to teach this men's workshop a while back, one of the many workshops that I've taught over the decades. And there was this task that I gave to the guys, and it was to go talk to their dad and ask their dad if they loved him or if they were proud of them, right? And one of the guys did that, and went and said, went to his son, and he said, I love you. I love you. And the son said, yeah, Dad, of course I know I love you. but I don't feel that you've ever accepted me. Right now, as a father, wow. I mean, here you put all this effort into making sure that your child loves you, but it's missing one of the most important components that we all want to. We all want to feel accepted. We all want to feel appreciated, right? Especially from our parents, right? So that's one of those thank you moments, right? Like, thank you for sharing that, because how many times in our lives have we had experiences and we have walked out of a business and didn't give them the feedback of what we were experiencing? How many times have we had conversations with people and said, I'm not ever going to talk to that person again? And it's because of our interpretation of what we created around this narrative about what it is that we experienced, and never went to that person and shared with them what we were really experiencing. Because, friends, understand, your perception is not reality. It is not reality. It's a part of reality for sure, but we all interpret the experience much different, right? Experience itself is neutral, right? So when somebody comes up and gives you feedback, just understand it's just feedback, right? And it's also an opportunity for you to have a notice moment, right? Like, our egos sometimes does not like that. Our egos will show up and it'll want to defend, like, wait a minute, whoa, we don't want to go there, right? But when someone comes up and gives us feedback, it's going to be in a notice moment, right? Like, so when I'm in like dealing with other businesses, I think it's really important to share with the business owner my experience, whether it's whatever it is, whether it was a positive one or a negative one, or whatever, because I understand that entrepreneur has invested a lot, into creating that business, right? And he has people that don't understand the magnitude of his or her investment to create that business, right? So if somebody is, for some people, courageous enough to come and share with you how they see you and how you show up, if they're courageous enough to do that, and of course there is ways of doing it gracefully, compassionately, considerately, right? Because some people just, and I've certainly been guilty of it, where I've just been in a place where I wasn't in a good spot and just let words fly, and then ended up going back later and apologizing because I wasn't very tactful, right? But so the reason this is important, because if we don't share this, if we don't share what our experience is, we end up carrying it with us, right? So, for example, and the other part of this, it's not necessarily we have to share everything, but we have to get intentional about what is the narrative that we have created about our experience. We have to get real intentional about this, because whatever narrative we created out of that experience is going to determine our state, right? Like, you can change your state, your strategy, or your story, right? And understand everybody's human, right? Like, this is going to be hard for some of you to hear, and it wasn't fun for me to get this either. But it's true. Like, there is no single person on this planet that's 100% trustworthy. And there's no way to know that, right? And what I mean by that, like, if you ask somebody, do I look fat in these jeans, right? I mean, it's not that they're well-intended people, right? Is that they're valuing certain things that are going to impact their ability to be entirely transparent, right? The other part of it is, are they coming from a wound, or are they coming from their true natural state, which is what they were born into this world with, right? Like, compassionate and love and understanding, right? No prejudice, none of that stuff, right? And so people, people are interesting. People are really, really interesting, right? And this whole narrative around don't offend me, right? Me being offended is my responsibility, right? And the reason we are offended is because it is aligned with something that we already have inside of us, right? So if there's something that happens outside of us that triggers something within us, it's because it's in us, and that's why we're triggered. And so it's a great opportunity for us to really look at, what is the narrative I have around this? Because, friends, understand, we're going to attract situations into our lives over and over and over, because we're electromagnetic beings. We'll just keep attracting situations into our lives until we learn how to move through that lesson, right? So you get to choose, right? Like, what we resist becomes anchors, right? And so when things irritate us, and I've got a PhD in this one, right? Like, I've really had to like one area that I get to grow a lot in and still do it. And again, it depends on my state, right? It depends on my state. It depends what I'm listening to, how much caffeine I have in me, what time frame I'm in, where am I going, what's been going on in my life. When I get on that highway, right, there's a lot of things going on, and somebody can cut me off. And yeah, I've had some experiences on the interstate, right? But understanding it's all because of the narrative that I've created. See, in fear, anger, let's go with anger, right? Anger is a secondary emotion. And underneath that, usually for anger, is we are afraid or we got hurt animated, right? And we use anger to protect us, right? It's just our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And so the more we can look at, the more we can look at the narratives that we created, because what determines the quality of your life, like the thing that determines the quality of your life is the scripts you tell yourself and the images you have in your head. And then your body takes over from there, right? So you can take things personal, which is your own story, which is your own choice, right? Or understand that everybody's got their own world, everybody's got their own model of the world, and that however they're showing up probably has nothing to do with you, right? And so understanding that there's a big difference between content and context, right? Like the people that see things on the news is seeing a very, very, very small piece of content, and they don't understand the context, and they're making judgment calls. So like just case in point, if I said Trump, just said the word Trump right now, you're going to access everything within yourself and you're going to project that onto me, right? I didn't say whether I liked him or didn't like him. I just said his name Trump, right? Obama, let's use Obama. Let's say Biden, right? All the things that you have inside of you, you access, you immediately make a judgment call on me because of the words I say. It's human nature. We all do it, right? And so looking at what is the narrative that I've created about whatever it is triggering me, how does the trigger serve me, right? Like what benefit do I get out of being triggered, right? Because that we don't have anything in us that doesn't serve us some way. Otherwise we wouldn't have it, right? And so the more we can figure out the lesson of what it is that we are getting animated or have energy behind it, then we understand that every single person in our life has a lesson to teach us. We need to always be grateful for this. And I remember my friend, Dr. Tom, and Dr. Tom taught me a lot. And he was a very, very influential man in my life. And he said, always be grateful for the lesson. Always be grateful for the lesson. So what if you went into every single interaction? And friends, I tell you, this last year, man, I really, really, really got the opportunity to exercise this stuff, right? Because I went through some very, very transforming experiences and very, very grateful for them because of going through those experiences, it was the catalyst that has created lots and lots of different opportunities for me. Had I not gone through those, I would have known that I was capable of doing the things that I have done because I had some very, very important relationships in my life that blew up and went in a different direction than what I thought they were going to. I was put in a place where I had to make some choices that I didn't really want to do. And today I'm super grateful because now looking back over it, I got to see what created that, how I created that. Because again, friends, understand life doesn't happen to you. Life doesn't happen for you. There's the new positive thing out there saying life happens through you. It happens through you, right? You are the authority, the author of your life. And every single decision you have made is what has changed or created where you're at right now. Every single decision you've made, right? And so if we don't want to look at, and I've got so many techniques and exercises that I do with my clients that just really give them the opportunity to see things and facing our truth, facing our shadow sometimes is not much fun because our ego's not very good at wanting to admit that it might be wrong, right? Our ego is our ego. It's full of pride. And I had some really big lessons on that 3 or 4 months ago. I remember my coach sending me these messages all the time. My coach is very in tune with who I am. And he was sending these messages and not intentionally calling me out, but saying it in a way that it could land however it was meant to land. And I remember sending him a message back. It's like, dude, why are you sending me all these messages on pride, man? It's like, I'm good. And whoa, lo and behold, it came up. And when it came up, it about floored me, right? And just understand it's part of who we are. it's our humanity, right? Like we've got all these components in who we are, and our judgment of it is just being the perpetrator of what somebody else did once upon a time in our lives. Like us learning how to give ourselves grace is one of the greatest things that we could ever do. Us learning to love into our pain is one of the greatest skills that we could ever do. Because see, this is what gives us the opportunity for us to understand we are the one that is responsible for the pain that we feel, because it's based on the narrative, right? And this is what determines how we step out into the unknown. Are we living in the past and going, I got hurt there and I'm not ever going to do that again? Right? That's all it is that's happening when we are stepping out into higher levels of what we want to create, right? So be thankful. Say thank you. Some people, you might not want to say that to, and I don't say thank you to everyone, but I want people to know that I appreciate them. I really do. And they're people are having life. I mean, people are on their journey, right? So when I go on my walk, I do my best to show up in a way that every single person I interact with, they know that I notice them, right? And that I want to give them some vibes that helps them understand that I appreciate them and that I acknowledge them, right? People are out there working their butts off, doing the best they can with what they've got, no matter what level. And just because I have different understandings and different experiences and stuff like that, it's being humble, and humble is celebrating value, and every single person in this world has some kind of value to bring, right? It might not show up the way you expect it, right? Like some of the most challenging freaking like experiences I've had in my life have really been the things that have been the catalyst. Some of it took longer than others, right? But it gave me the opportunity to really recognize parts of who I am that had that not happened, I would have never experienced it, right? So be grateful. It's a great vibration. Be thankful for every single person in your life, because whether you believe it or not, everything is divinely designed. Everything is divinely designed. And thank you, Christina, you're awesome. Everything is divinely designed. And what if it's showing up in a way that gives you the opportunity to learn something about who you are, right? So be grateful for the lessons. Be grateful for the mentors. Everybody has something to teach, and every single person you meet introduces you to a different part of who you are, right? So love, be joyful. I get it. Life happens, and this is mastery, and I get lots of opportunities to experience this. Like today, there was a moment when I went into it and you would have gone, yep, you're teaching on this tonight, right? And see, that's the other thing. Sometimes when you teach on something, you get opportunities to learn the lesson. See, the lessons are we get put into situations that we don't think we can handle, and then we move through them, and then we're able to trust our ability to know that we can handle them. So, yeah, it pisses me off when they don't say thank you. Oh, well, there's a journey for you. What's there for you, right? I mean, and that's just it. I get it. I've got my stories around that too. So, who's in control of your life? Who's in control of your emotions? You are, right? And I get opportunities every single day to work at this. So I'm glad you're here. And by the way, I'm doing another master class, masteringpotential.com. Go there now, masteringpotential.com. I'm going to be doing a class here coming up real soon that you do not want to miss that workshop. It's amazing. Also, if you haven't joined the community over at the potentialzonegroup.com, I'd highly recommend you do that. It's an amazing community, creating lots of potentializers, and we're having a lot of fun. So hope to see you over there. Till next time, my friend, be blessed. No, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for using your valuable time and showing up on these. I really appreciate it. And as always, live like your life depends on it, because it does, and you deserve the best. Be blessed, my friend. Much love.